Hello, good afternoon to you. Now, world leaders in Washington, including Boris Johnson, the Foreign Secretary, are in talks today on the fight against so-called Islamic State. The Syrian civil war, as we now all know, evolved into a multi-front war that facilitated the rise of jihadi groups like IS and drew in international powers to boot, including the United States and Russia. President Trump, has ordered his generals to come up with an accelerated strategy to eradicate ISIS, which still holds huge swathes of territory in Syria and Iraq, despite coming under increasing pressure, not to mention its message of violent jihad here in Europe, remembering that attack on the airport in Brussels just today. What do we do now? What does the world do now to stop the ideology that drives IS from spawning another lot, vowing death to infidels the world over? 0345 6060 973 is the number to call, 84850 the number to text, and you can tweet at LBC. In about half an hour's time, we'll get more information and some analysis and opinion on that move to ban electronic devices on a number of routes in and out of the UK and the United States. That's just after 1:30. First, though, to the meeting that's taking place in Washington for talks on the fight against Islamic State. It seems to be a kind of a meeting that is a reckoning as much as a plan for finally finishing off Islamic State in a military sense, in a territorial sense. That's probably the optimistic view of the meeting being held, with up to 68 different nations involved, including our own in the form of Boris Johnson, the Foreign Secretary, as I said a moment ago. But even if it's a given that we will defeat Islamic State at some point, are we doing enough, and what should it be that we do to stop the idea that allowed them to flourish in the first place? I think it's a given, it's an accepted truth now that part of what allowed them to develop and to become the fighting force that they have become is a combination of mistakes during and after the Iraq War, and then a kind of deafness, a kind of tone deafness here domestically in the UK to what was developing under our noses in terms of antagonism, dangerous, violent antagonism against the British state, the French state, against European states by some radicalised or violent Islamists. Those are the two, in a sense, it's a two-pronged approach that they have to address. What do you say we have to do now to make sure that if and when IS is defeated, there isn't another one, perhaps even stronger, following on? 0345 6060 973. We talk about preventing this as well, because it isn't just about what happens in the sands of Syria and Iraq. 84850 is the number to text, and you can tweet at LBC. Abbas has called from Redbridge, I should say, on this. Hello, Abbas.
Hi there, good afternoon, Sheila. Sorry, it's raining quite heavily and I'm in a car, so you might get a bit of interference.
Let's call it atmosphere.
Yeah, basically, Sheila, what I'd like to say is I think we've always been told that prevention is always better than cure. And I think that if we go and bomb countries around the world, we completely, demolish and destroy their economy, their health service, road systems, bridges, telecommunication, water purification, and they're living in absolute poverty, then that is going to be the biggest factor that will propagate and encourage such groups to be born. And I think until we start looking at it from that angle and concentrate more on the preventative measures, rather than constantly trying to pretend the link between the Islamic faith per se and terrorism, because Islam's been around for 14 centuries. We're only really been talking about this for the last 20, 25 years, about Islamic terrorism. Certainly,
that's not quite true. I mean, you can go back into the 60s. Well, you can go further back than that, but you can certainly go back to the 60s, 70s, and there was plenty of it. They weren't called Al-Qaeda, they weren't called Islamic State, but they were fighting a cause.
I think, Sheila, if you go back far enough to any community or any religion, you will find people within that community, within those people who have done heinous acts, sometimes in the name of religion, sometimes in the name of secularism or political gain or strategic gain or financial gain. We have that today as well. But I think certainly I don't remember hearing conversations on the radio and on TV with the regularity and the frequency that we seem to hear about them today.
Part of the reasons for that, Abbas, is that radio and TV has changed in those 25 years as well, dramatically. But I take the point that you're making. Thank you very much, Abbas, calling from Redbridge, or from a car in rainy Redbridge. Keep your thoughts coming on.